Hello and welcome to the pre-class for the FTVP 2300 Section 1 Advanced Edit in Color. This is not the actual first class, so we will have a meeting on this Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. But I did want to go over the syllabus, get this kind of out of the way, and to kind of explain how the class would actually go. That way you're not kind of walking into an unfamiliar situation. We're going to go over the syllabus, but how things will go is we are going to meet in primarily room 118, but also room 256 in Sverdrup Hall. So you should have access to both of those rooms, and how it's going to kind of shake out is 118 will meet from 5:30 to 7, and then I will rush upstairs to room 256 and I will do the same kind of lecture and work from 7 to 8:30. This first day of class, since we're not covering the syllabus through this, you might end up out just a little bit earlier. But the idea is that everyone shows up at 5:30 and everyone leaves at 8:30. The difference is I will only be in one room at a time. So if you show up at 5:30 and you are in room 118 and you get there before 8 other students, so only 9 are allowed in the room at any given point when the instructor's in there. If you show up and you are in 118, you'll get the lecture first up until 7 p.m. or roundabouts, and then you'll have the rest of the time to work in the classroom. Now, if you want to work outside of the classroom, you want to go home and do the work, that's just fine, and I won't even be there to know otherwise. If you show up at 5:30 and you're not part of that first amount of people in 118, or you would just like to go to 256 and work before I show up to class and we do the rest of the more formal stuff, you can be in 256. You can work up until 7 p.m. Then I'll show up and I'll do a lecture, or we'll do presentations or critique or something like that for this period of time. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, if you don't want to do either, if you want to just stay home and work remotely, that's just fine. How I plan on having it work, and I'm not sure which room will be more suitable for this, is I will choose one of these two periods to cast remotely. So you'll still get the same stuff, but chances are it's going to be this one right here, 256, at 7 to 8:30. So you're basically in the 256 group, but you are at home. In theory, that should cover everybody, right? That if you want to be in person, you can. You won't be in a room with too many people, and it's going to be kind of shortened periods where you can work in the lab still afterwards or before, or if you want to do some kind of hybrid, you're there for the time that I'm there, and then you just bail and kind of work from home afterwards. That's just fine. So hopefully that can kind of accommodate everyone's working preferences through this. Okay, so let's go over the syllabus real quick, and hopefully this makes sense. Oh, one more thing about that. Sorry. So that Zoom that we'll be doing probably in 256 at 7 to 8:30, and I'll make an announcement if anything's different about it, but I'll also make an announcement with a Zoom link or a Zoom address or whatever it is, so that you can actually access the stuff. So if you are working remotely, or even if you were in the first part of this in 118 and you want to just join with the 256 people and experience it twice, not exactly sure why, but maybe for a critique session you want to help with a project that you're kind of working on or did work on or something, you can certainly join in that way. So announcements on Canvas, really important before class starts, to hop on there if you are working remotely for sure. Okay, so going over the rest of the syllabus, it shouldn't take too long, hopefully, but it will get some stuff out of the way. And you're free to just kind of look over this. There's a link on Canvas under Files that will be this exact text, and you can kind of peruse through it, especially if you don't want to hear me break things down in detail. But that's what we're doing. From here on, and hopefully it'll give you some extra insight as to what the text actually means. So it is fall 2020. That's easy, self-explanatory stuff. We do meet every Wednesday at 5:30. It's expected that you're there from 5:30 to 8:30, but if part of this time you are working at home or working remotely, that's just fine. My name is Trevor Younger. I think I've had a lot of you in the earlier classes. If I haven't, if you've been in the edit and color class, the intro class, with somebody else, it'll be really interesting the kinds of answers we get on the first day of class when we do like a quick review of everything that you should have gotten in the other classes. But make sure that you are there for that so I can get a baseline for all of you and kind of understand where we are in terms of experience level. Okay, I have two email addresses listed here. One is a webster.edu account and the other one's Gmail. I highly recommend that you just use Gmail for me. If you have to ask me a question about something really official, like a particular grade where I have to divulge like a percentage that you got or something, at that point they really want us to use the webster.edu account because it's more secure apparently. So make sure that that's from your Webster to my Webster. If you ever do have to ask that question, you can always ask me like face to face or on Zoom or something where it's like not something that has a record somewhere, but it's important that we keep things kind of confidential and safe and stuff. So that's what that email is there for. Otherwise, just use the Gmail account. That works much better for me. I have my Facebook account listed, and you can use that to contact me. It usually does pop up on my phone, but I'm moving away from Facebook more and more every day. So it's an option for you. If that's your preferred way to talk to me, you can get in touch with me that way. But email's probably the best. All right, course description. Editing is the last and most important writing process in a film, video, or television production. Advanced Edit and Color will build on the concepts established in FTVP 1300 and introduce advanced systems and workflow not covered by the previous class. FTVP 1300 is a requirement for this course unless approved by the instructor. I didn't get any requests from people that haven't had FTVP 1300. That is the intro level edit and color if you're not familiar with the course numbers and stuff. So I assume everyone's had the class. That said, the class is different depending on who taught it. So if you didn't have it with me, you might have some knowledge that my students don't, but probably some, you're probably have a couple of holes that they don't have. So it's really important that first day we can kind of establish some things, and if you don't know some things, definitely say that you don't know, or you want me to elaborate or something, so we can all get up to speed on things. Okay, course learning outcomes. By the end of the course, you should be able to do all of these things. You should be able to edit complete projects with appropriate pacing. You should be able to read and understand scopes for all aspects of color grading. You should be able to mix audio as multi-track sessions with appropriate levels for dialogue, sound effects, and music. And you should be able to edit projects shot with multiple cameras. Yeah, you'll be able to do all of those things for sure by the end of the class. Suggested reading, so there are no textbooks that are required for the class, but these two things are pretty nice. The Art and Technique of Digital Color Correction by Steve Hulfish. That's kind of what taught me how to color grade. I'm somewhat self-taught, but books are helpful for sure. And this is a great like intro book. And it gets kind of complex in there, but not in a way where it's kind of obtuse or anything. It's very easy to pick up on, but it does go into the finer details of color grading. The other one is In the Blink of an Eye by Walter Murch, which is like the quintessential editing book. Walter Murch is the guy for modern editing, so it would make sense to read why he does what he does and his philosophies on things. Very helpful stuff there. All right, so here's what you'll be graded on throughout the class. You have assignments, which make up 30% of your grade. There won't be too many assignments, to be honest with you. Sometimes there's more than others. Last semester, we certainly didn't get more than 2 major assignments. There are a few things that kind of are much smaller assignments that we do throughout the semester, and that kind of goes into the class participation grade. But the actual like kind of formal assignments, those are worth 30% of your grade. So we'll always do a music video and a trailer assignment. So those will definitely happen, but there may be room for one more. It kind of depends on how the class goes, working remotely and working like splitting our time between 2 courses. Needless to say, this is unprecedented territory, so I would assume that we only get through those 2 projects, but there is a chance that we could add one more. All right, so class participation, that is worth 20% of your grade. Lessons require group discussion. A portion of this course will be completed online using Canvas. It is your responsibility to post once per discussion question and respond to 2 others' posts with thoughtful, thorough analysis. So yeah, it's not just group discussion in class, which is kind of part of things, but also on Canvas. So on Canvas discussions, you'll maybe post a rough cut of what you're working on, and then it's required that you respond to 2 other people's rough cuts in like a thorough, thoughtful manner. So it's not just, oh, this was good, right? It's like an actual critique of the work, and maybe it's constructive criticism, maybe it's outlining what works really well in the project, but it's not just, I liked it, right? Like it's thorough and thoughtful. But yeah, you do have to respond to 2 other people's projects. So it is really helpful that you do your work not at the very last minute, because if it is at the last minute, then people don't really have the time to respond to your work, and you won't get that thoughtful feedback, which is really helpful and important. So I can give you notes on technical aspects, and that's really what I grade on, rather than like subjective territory. But other students can really help with like content analysis. So if you're really into like with the trailer project that uses other films, like you're going to do an alt genre trailer, and we'll get into that when we actually get there. But if it happens to be a film I've never seen before, it's really helpful to have somebody's outsider perspective that has seen that film, and they can give you a much better analysis of the content that you're using, or maybe give you some notes on other scenes that you can pull from to kind of achieve what you're planning to achieve there. All right, so there is a final project, and this is a big one. It is worth 50% of your overall grade. So you have the option to edit a documentary, a narrative, or experimental film that's 5 minutes or longer. So it can't go under 5. This includes credits and stuff too. So if you're sitting at 4 minutes and 50 seconds, maybe you add some end credits where you weren't going to have them before, to make that 5-minute requirement. But how much longer you go than 5 minutes is kind of up to you. We give you some options there, but the idea here is that you, in the earlier class, are working with these very short form projects, and now you have the chance to work out pacing on something much longer, or at least substantially longer, and it's not like it's a feature or anything. Please don't cut a feature, by the way. It's going to be really, really tough to do that as a critique and take up all of our hour and a half that we have with each other. So I would say if you can keep it under 20, that's a good thing. If you can keep it under 10, that's fine too. And by the way, if it does go 10 minutes or longer, you can work in groups on these final projects. So if you have a project that you're certain is going to be 12 minutes long, you can actually team up with one other student to work in a team. And we'll kind of learn about team workflows for editing as well, and how to kind of approach it remotely, which could be really helpful, and certainly helpful in this certain time that we're living in, right? So if you want to do that, that is an option for you. You will have to come up with your own project. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to shoot it or anything. You will have to find the footage for it. You'll maybe petition some people and be like, hey, I know that you're making a film in your senior overview. Do you need someone to cut it? And you can potentially cut the same thing that someone else has already cut. Like you can do a recut of something, just so long as you don't reuse people's transitions or edits or anything like that. So if you're working on a project that was previously cut, you're just getting the raw footage and you're working from scratch for it. Okay. So assignment policy: late work will not be accepted without proper documentation, like a doctor's note, under any circumstances. Likewise, course incompletes will not be given to any student without proper documentation. So if you, for some reason, can't finish the class, you need to contact me and let me know what's going on for sure, and you need some kind of like official documentation. So if worst case scenario, you got COVID-19 and you were sick and out of commission, you couldn't edit for a few weeks and you needed to take an incomplete, I'm sure that would be an acceptable reason to take an incomplete and finish later. Then you'd need to have like some kind of official, like, look, I got sick from the doctor. Okay, materials used. It is every student's responsibility to bring something to write on for notes to each class. So in this case, you certainly don't need a notebook, but you could bring your laptop, or you can type on WordPad or word processor on the computer or something. That's fine. Students will need an external hard drive with at least 1 terabyte of free storage space. More than a terabyte's better. USB 2.0 or higher, self-powered and formatted exFAT for use on Mac and PC computers. Please buy a quality hard drive and another to use as a backup and backup data regularly. Data loss or corruption will not be a valid excuse for late or incomplete work. Plan accordingly. For the class, you might not need exFAT. NTFS is a little bit faster on PCs, and if you know that you're going to work on PC consistently, I think that that's okay. exFAT, the idea is that you can jump from a PC to a Mac and back and forth and be safe. If you plan on ever using a Mac with that hard drive, exFAT's probably a better choice for you. But if you're certain that it's just going to be PC, NTFS probably won't throw you. When it says buy a quality hard drive, all I can recommend is against Seagate hard drives, which we've had a lot of troubles with in the class and in my professional life. Seagate has traditionally failed me many times. Western Digital is a pretty good hard drive. I have looking at it right now, Western Digital Easy Store. I got mine from Best Buy on Black Friday, and it's like a 5 terabyte for, I think I got it for like $80 or something. It was fairly cheap. I don't think it's that cheap anymore, but something like that would be great. I'm sure you can get a one terabyte for cheaper. By the way, that Easy Store I've dropped on the floor now like 3 or 4 times. I have hardwood floors, and it cracked the case, and it's still working just fine inside the case. I'm not saying yours will be perfect, but mine has taken a beating and been okay. All right, Media Center SOC equipment and facilities. Webster University makes substantial investments in equipment and facilities for our production majors, and as such, we have a few policies in place to make sure that the equipment is cared for properly. We need your help in ensuring that all equipment is in good working order for all students to use. Equipment and facility access is a privilege, not a right, and can be revoked for not following policy. So yeah, don't break the stuff. Equipment, there will be no access to Media Center SOC equipment for this course. That is not exactly true. It's mostly true. You can't pick up cameras or anything for the course, but there is one thing that you can get in the Media Center, and it should be unlocked by enrolling in the course and staying past the drop date, and that is the DaVinci Resolve license dongle. So that gives you access to like the paid studio version of DaVinci Resolve. So even if you install it at home and you want to access the more premium qualities of DaVinci Resolve, you can check out. It's just like a little USB stick. You plug it into your computer or any of the computers that have the studio version of Resolve on them, and then it should act like, hey, this thing is licensed and stuff, but only while the dongle is plugged in, and you can only have it for like 24 hours at a time. Also, it's a different program than the free version of Resolve, so you'll have to uninstall the free version of Resolve and then install the paid version of Resolve to get it to work, which is not ideal, but it can work. And the color grading lab, which is in the back room of 256, that does have the studio version of Resolve. You just have to check out the dongle to work on it. Okay, that is a Mac, by the way, too. If you want to work on that, exFAT hard drive. All right, facilities, edit and studio facilities are available on a first come first served basis. All facilities and workstations must be checked out in the media center before use. Food and drink are prohibited in the labs except for drinks in a sealed container, which are to be kept on the floor with away from any sensitive equipment. Any damage to university equipment while using a facility will be the responsibility of the student. Food brought into the classroom must be kept inside student bags and consumed in the student lounge or elsewhere. No food or drink at all during class, but if you're in the lab and you're alone in the lab and there's no threat to infection or anything like that, if you're totally alone, I assume that it would be safe to pull down your mask and take a drink of water out of a plastic bottle that has a cap on it. But yeah, if we're in the actual class and stuff, no food or drink at all. If you need to get a drink, you can excuse yourself and go get a drink outside of the classroom. All right, attendance and tardiness. Normally we have much more strict attendance and tardiness rules, but in this case we're a little bit more lenient, right? The current idea with attendance for this course anyway, attendance for the course is mandatory. However, in-person attendance is not. So Webster makes strong efforts to protect its students from infection. But if you feel more comfortable working remotely, or maybe partially remotely and showing up sometimes, that's just fine. There's not going to be any negative repercussions to your grade to like work from Zoom and work from home and stuff. So long as your computer can handle video editing, you should be fine to work from home. And even then, if you feel safe coming to work in a lab during like non-peak hours where there's maybe one or two people versus, 9 others in the room, that's just fine too. So long as you access our talks every Wednesday and you keep up with the class, it's just fine. But if you do want to show up in person, that's fine too, and it could benefit you. It really depends on what kind of student you are. Okay, tardiness. Due to the altered format of this course, tardiness will not be excused. If you find yourself running late, consider attending the later in-person session. That said, we have strict guidelines about how many students can be in a room, so if there's no space for you due to tardiness, you'll have to attend remotely. All right, so that's accurate. So if you show up on time and you go to room 118, and there's already 9 students in there, then you'll kind of have to go to 256 and wait for the 7 o'clock time slot to come around. Or you could go home at that point and just like attend remotely, or you could go to a different lab and attend remotely, without a ton of students around you and stuff. But if you end up in a different kind of position where everyone's already in 256 and there's no room for you there either, then yeah, you're forced to work remotely. We can't kind of accommodate that at all. You could go to potentially 118 and work remotely from there. That's fine. But yeah, there's very specific space guidelines that we have. And to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure what they are besides the fact that no class can have more than 9 students. So 256 is a little bit smaller than 118. So if they came back and said, hey, 256 can only have 7 students, then that would be our rule there. If these things are a little bit different than what I've laid out today, I will certainly put that up as an announcement for you, so you all know what's going on with that stuff. But yeah, so tardiness is bad. Tardiness could really get you into trouble, especially with the weird kind of format we have here. All right, we have a monthly meeting section here, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on with the monthly meeting, to be honest with you. I assume it will be online. Now what they're supposed to do is post on this Facebook group what's going on with it any given time that there is a meeting, like who's going to be there, who's going to be talking, what the subjects are that they're going to be talking about and stuff. But that isn't always the case. I find that sometimes no one says anything about the monthly meeting. Well, here anyway. And I'm not someone who normally attends the monthly meeting, so maybe one of the students in the class will know a little bit more about that and can maybe define that a little bit better in the discussions area on Canvas. I will have like an all-purpose discussion thread, so if you find yourself questioning what's going on with the monthly meeting, maybe check there and see if someone knows something about it. Or you could potentially make your own post on this Facebook group and say, hey, what's going on with the monthly meeting? And someone will probably know there, since a lot of the professors are on there. All right, so portfolio review. If you're an FTVP major in your senior year, you'll be required to undergo a review of all of your major work. So it's really important that you save examples of all your coursework, including what they have listed here: assignments, papers, notes, exams, group work, etc. I don't know that you'd need all of that stuff, but maybe. Also, above all else, save every single one of your film and video projects from your courses. So yeah, don't delete your stuff. Definitely keep your stuff. Make sure that you have that, because you're going to be graded on it again in the future. So here are the university grading standards. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so you can see that better. Okay, there's A to F, and then there's a bunch of things in between and special grades and stuff. And basically what this says is I can give you whatever I feel about your projects, but just letting you know, I'll grade your projects on as objective terms as possible, rather than kind of subjective ones. So maybe I think that your pacing is too fast, but you want it to be fast. If that's a creative choice, right? That's a subjective area. I probably won't grade you down too badly for that. Now, if your pacing is clearly uneven or there's something like technically wrong, now that's something that's more of an objective set of terms. Okay. Now, there's a couple of things in here. Incompletes, you probably know what that means, that you didn't finish the course, and usually that's not a big thing, but hopefully it's not this semester, but it could be. So if you feel like you can't complete the course for some reason, please talk to me and talk to your advisor and stuff, and we'll try to figure out some way to make things work. A withdrawal is W on your transcripts and stuff, and that is if you decide that you don't want to take the course after like the first week, after the drop week, then you'll get a W on your transcripts, but it certainly looks better than an F, especially if you were going to get an F, or you're certain that you couldn't catch up in the class or something. Now, if you get a WF, that looks worse than a W, but not as bad as an F, I suppose. So if you just stop showing up to class and you don't get a W, you don't do any, you wait too long and you just stop showing up, you'd end up getting a WF in the course. And that doesn't look great. So don't do that. Make sure you keep in contact with people, and you plan accordingly. Very helpful stuff, right? Okay. University policy statements. So this is just some university stuff. This course is governed by the university's policies as published in the university catalog. Academic honesty. The university is committed to high standards of academic honesty. Students will be held responsible for violations of these standards. Please refer to the university catalog for a definition of academic dishonesty and potential associated disciplinary actions. So if you try to pass off work that's someone else's as your own, that's kind of like plagiarism. I have seen it in editing classes, not in the advanced class, but in other ones. If you take somebody else's edit and say, hey, this is my own, and there is a real possibility of that, especially with a recut of something. But I will investigate these things if I have even like a slight suspicion. And if you did do it, you will fail the class just outright. So please don't do it. If you end up in a position where you're like, oh no, I'm feeling very overwhelmed, how am I going to get this stuff done? Please contact me, and we'll try to like kind of work around things. We all understand that this is a weird time for people, and it can be very difficult. So if you need help, if you need to get an extension or something, it's way better just to contact me. So we kind of treat this as like a professional thing, right? So if you had a job and you were editing for some kind of firm, and you said, hey, I need an extension on this deadline to finish this, your boss would be like, nah, you just got to turn it in on time and not good. Or they would say, yeah, I will grant you an extension, so our clients are happier and stuff. So that's a real possibility. But if you just don't turn in your assignment, right? You don't turn in the edit that you're supposed to do, and you don't contact anybody, and you wait a couple of weeks, then you're fired, right? So make sure that you stay in contact all the time, and we can very likely work something out for you. Okay, drops and withdrawals. Please be aware that the drop and add and withdrawal dates are listed each semester on the university website, in the university catalog, and in the course description book. If the course is dropped within the drop add period, no notation of the course will appear on the student's transcripts. Withdrawals taking place after the published drop date, W will appear on the student's transcript. So Yeah, I think it's the first week, but you can check for yourself on these spaces here, the website and catalog and course description book. So if you wait until after that and then decide, wait a second, this class isn't for me, or this is going to be too tough, I just can't do it, you can withdraw. And I think that there's a certain amount of money that you get back, but not the full amount. But if you drop within the drop date, like you do the first class with us and you go, nah, it's not for me, no harm, no foul. You get a full refund for the class if you paid for the class. And then nothing pops up on your transcripts. It's just you're free and clear. You didn't take the course. All right, special services. Under special services, if you have registered as a student with a documented disability and are entitled to classroom or testing accommodations, please inform the instructor at the beginning of the course of the accommodations that you will require in this course so that these can be provided. Okay, so yeah, usually I get emails about anyone who needs some kind of special services. There aren't any tests in this class. It's just like hands-on editing work. So maybe you have like you're colorblind or something, which you might not have even registered with something like that, because it probably doesn't bother you in a whole lot of classes. But for color grading, it might. Um, uh, Let me know if you can email me or talk to me after class or before class or something. Anything that you need in terms of accommodations, please let me know. Even if you did register and I should have gotten that email, make sure that I did, and make sure that I'm providing you with what you need to succeed in the class. All right. Disturbances. Since every student is entitled to full participation in the class without interruption, disruption of class by inconsiderate behavior is not acceptable. Students are expected to treat the instructor and fellow students with dignity and respect, especially in cases where a diversity of opinions arise. We will do critiques in the class. It's very important that you are honest in your critique. That's a big part of things, right? If it's constructive criticism, that's great. If you start like lobbing insults at each other, that's bad though, right? So make sure that you're just critiquing the work and not the person, and everything should be fine. If not, then we'll ask you to leave, and that won't be good, right? Moving on. Student assignments retained. Some student assignments or projects will be retained by the School of Communications for the purpose of academic assessment as it relates to student learning outcomes. In every such case, the student's name and all identifying information about the student will be removed from the assignment or project. If my bosses need to see how well the students are learning in the class and they want to see some of the projects, we can show them. It's not something like we show the bad projects to make fun of students or anything like that. Instead, it's like I'm incentivized to show my bosses the best projects and to potentially remark about how good they are, because that makes me look better too. So if I show anyone anything, which I haven't, I've never had this request before, but if it happens, I would certainly show them the best of your work and not the worst. So there are contact hours for this course. Not really. Normally I would have some kind of time set aside, but it's a hectic semester. If you want to email me, I should be able to get back to you within like 48 hours at the maximum. And it is important also that we meet for the full instructional time. Kind of, right? So long as you put in the work during that time, you should be fine. But yeah, I will be bouncing between classes, so I will be present and available to the best of my ability for the 3 hours from 5:30 to 8:30, but I might not be able to answer your emails directly during that time, especially if we're trying to cram a bunch of stuff in an hour and a half. This first week should be a little bit more relaxed because we're doing this on YouTube, or this little bit on YouTube, and that should take a little bit of weight off of our shoulders. All right. It's important that we follow health and safety guidelines. Students are reminded to follow all COVID-19 health and safety guidelines to keep our community healthy. The guidelines are outlined in specifics on Webster's COVID-19 page. There's an address for it right here. Yes, go there. It's important that you do all of these things before you come, not just to class, but onto campus, right? So there's what is it? A daily health screening that you have to do on this website before you come to campus. Now, I'm not sure how it's going to work in practice, but I have heard that there will be people stationed outside the doors, and you can't get into the building until they confirm that you've done this thing, which basically asks if you've been running a fever, if you have a cold, or if you've run into somebody who's had COVID, like you've been exposed to them and stuff. Some basic questions that you can answer honestly, right, before coming to campus. There are these other things that you have to do while you're on campus too. So everyone in a classroom will be required to wear a mask or face coverings. So bring a mask, wear the mask at all times. If you have to get out of the mask because you're going crazy, please excuse yourself from the room and stuff. Don't do that in the actual classroom. You need to maintain social distancing in classrooms, including while you're seated, so you can't be in on computers next to each other or anything like that, and also while you're entering and exiting doors. So make sure that you're not like bumping into each other trying to get out of the room too quickly. Food and drink, again, not allowed in class at all. If you are feeling sick, don't come to class. That should be really self-explanatory. If you really want to be there, please just attend remotely, use the Zoom link, and you should be good there. Also, you'll be asked to disinfect items you use during the class or labs before leaving the room. So if you used a mouse and keyboard, make sure that you use, there are disinfecting wipes and stuff before you go to wipe everything down so the next person to come in is safe. I know that they're doing a lot of cleaning, professionally cleaning the rooms. But if you're in a lab and you just used something and you walked out and then someone didn't know, but they walk directly in after you and sit at that same computer, it's obviously not going to get cleaned fast enough, and someone's going to slip through the cracks with that stuff. So going a step further, I would say disinfect it before you use it too. And then you can have that extra layer of safety and stuff. But it is really important that you keep all that stuff together. All right, there is one last page to this thing, and then I'll let you guys go. It's about the Media Center. So do read this. I know that we don't have equipment available to us other than the DaVinci Resolve dongle. By the way, there's only one of those things, so it might be kind of hard to reserve it, but make sure that you actually do reserve it. So if you go into your connections account, you should see a link for web checkout where you can reserve equipment through the Media Center. And then they kind of adjusted their reservation system so that people won't be right on top of each other, and hopefully that eliminates any kind of congregating at the Media Center. So you come in, you pick up your stuff in this 15-minute period, and then nobody else is around you and stuff. So read that over, and if you have questions or anything like that, there is a phone number for the Media Center where you can talk to them and get a better idea of how this stuff is going to work. I might consider waiting a couple of weeks to see how their system works and let them work out all the kinks and stuff before you jump in there. But that's it. Okay, so that is our syllabus. I'm happy that we got that kind of out of the way before we actually have the class and stuff. So then we have room to do our review of the intro level edit in color and kind of get an idea of where you all are, so we can have appropriate expectations for the rest of the course. I look forward to talking to the majority of you in person, and then maybe a few of you on Zoom as well, this Wednesday at 5:30.